Hey. Okay. Yeah.
Let me play this video of Bishop William Barber, one of the sermons that he gave recently, laying out the moral case for fighting back. And here is this video from Bishop Barber.
I watched them arrest a girl with cerebral palsy in a wheelchair, holding her Bible. And they were ordered to arrest us for praying that they would listen to God and not to grieve. In the return, we carried 51 caskets last Monday because 51,000 people will die this year from what was passed and signed on July 4th. What done the 4th of July means?
Bishop William Barber, welcome to the show. And it is a Moral Monday, so I'm glad that you are here. It's technically not the first Monday of the month, but we said we just adjusted the calendar because we wanted to talk to you today. Bishop, what do you make of this question? Because, you know, I guess for Democrats, the moral question is whether to break the rules in order to fix the problem. And the rules say that they should be for nonpartisan gerrymandering. Democrats have been for that for a long time. But it seems to me that they have backed down from a fight when Republicans haven't backed down at all and are still breaking all the rules, and they're about to do it in Texas.
First of all, Joy, thank you. Looking forward to this Moral Monday time with you. And thank you to my brother who was willing to speak out and keep speaking. And what he did is model something that we have to understand in this moral moment. Let me do a little history first. Democrats in North Carolina, every fight we had over redistricting prior to 2012 was against Democrats. So let's not act like Democrats always followed the rules. They followed black folk, and they wanted to have enough blacks in districts to get elected, but not enough for blacks to get elected. So I just want you to know that since 1965 in North Carolina, every time we fought Democrats because they always checked one thing was race. Now, what the Republicans have done is taken it to the nth level. Let's own that. Secondly, we have to own that Democrats, when they had both the House and Senate and the presidency, since June 25th, 2013, did not pass the Voting Rights Act restoration. We can't walk past that. They had it and they didn't, even when Obama was there. And they had the House and the Senate. And that's tragic. And they have to own that, because owning that is going to tell them what they need to do now. And then lastly, when they had the majority with Biden and Kamala and the House, they didn't do living wages. 8 Democrats joined the Republicans in the Senate and blocked living wages. And the rumor is they didn't want Vice President Harris to be able to run for president and say, I was the deciding vote on passing the living wage. All right. I mean, that's out there. They didn't do the Voting Rights Act. So we have to decide, this is a moral moment. You just said, well, if California was to pass and add some seats, they ought to do it. They ought to do it and test it in court, right? It's not illegal. But remember, when you're talking about moral things, St. Augustine said, an unjust law is no law at all. So we are required to challenge an unjust law. In this moment that we're in, and I'm convinced of that, we're headed to Mississippi for another 12-state Moral Monday. Yes, we have to have activation in the street, but it can't be what we used to do, one thing and then we go home. When we did Moral Monday in North Carolina, and we had Pat McCrory was Trump, and the legislature was MAGA back then, of course it was Tea Party. They had the majority, supermajority, every Monday for 2 years. 2,000 people got arrested. But what Jim Lawson, when I talked to him about it, he said, you're not doing this because you're going to win one Monday miraculously. You're doing this to educate the public, to bring a future coalition together, and to keep people angry until they get to the election. So you add to what you're doing in the street, your legal battles and your voting registration and motivation. Because the truth of the matter is, Joy, take for instance in Georgia, I think Trump won by something a little bit less than 15,000 votes. We have to own that there are over 1 million black people in Georgia that are eligible to vote, didn't even vote. And when you talk about poor and low wage folk, look at the the study that Celinda Lake just came out with Way to Win this past week. They said of the 19 million people that left the Harris Biden ticket, didn't vote. The number one reason they didn't vote was they said they heard no clarity about addressing poverty and low wages. This is a recent study. So I think the other thing Dems need to do is not have a press conference on one bill. Why don't they put together a omnibus package? We have one in the Senate, and they're called Third Reconstruction, and lay out everything they will do if they get power again in the first 50 days. In the first 50 days. And push that, let them vote it down. But then people will understand next year when you're going to vote, this is what you're fighting for. This is what you're fighting for. People are no longer going to say, let people just get elected and then tell you tell us what you're going to do. Say right now, if you give us the House and the Senate, not in the first 100 days, in the first 50 days, this is all the things that we're going to vote on and throw to Trump and force him to veto it. That's the kind of challenge we have to do. And then lastly, I know I'm talking a little long. My brother, when he kept speaking, we're going to have to go to these hearings and do the same thing. Masses of people. Keep speaking. Let them arrest you for disrupting. Be willing to take the charge like we did in the Rotunda. This is not a time that we can walk in fear. We have a group called Save America Movement. And in a few weeks, Joe, we're releasing in California Liberty vans that are going to have a veteran in it, an immigrant, a chaplain, a TV camera crew to directly film ICE in what they're doing. Now, I know that's risky, but this is the time we're in. This is the time we're in. And we cannot, in this moment, step backwards. We've got to step forward. And whatever we do, once you do it, you got to keep doing it. You can't have one action. You have to keep doing it, 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 and keep doing it.
I mean, Isaiah Martin is young. He's got new ideas. It doesn't feel like that's the kind of leadership that Democrats want. They seem to push back against those kinds of leaders. They seem to be annoyed at them rather than embrace them. You're seeing it with Mamdani in New York, where it feels like the whole Democratic establishment is trying to figure out a way to get back Cuomo instead of him. What do you think that's about?
Well, you know, there was an article right after the election, and then there was a video by Steve Bannon, and he said one of the reasons they challenged Democrats in this moment, and they agreed that this was the moment, is because they looked at the ages and the energy of Democrats in the House and in the Senate. And they said, as you notice, they've been putting younger and younger people in. Republicans have been strategically on the courts, in Congress and Senate, younger and younger people. Now, I'm not doing an ageism kind of thing. That's not what I'm talking about. But what they said was, we are going to bombard the Senate and the House in such a way that people just can't keep up because they don't have the energy, the stamina, right? But more importantly than age, this brother just laid out, this is what I'm going to do in the South, where actually there is a power base to be built among poor and low wage people where in Texas, if just 20, I think 13 or 14% of poor and low wage people who did not vote were to vote last time, they would outdistance the margin that Trump had. And it's all over. So we need that kind of lead. We need our wisdom. We need people who've been there. But Democrats shouldn't be shooting themselves in the foot when they get candidates that have the right issues, the right agenda, but then for some reason they don't want you. And they should learn. Republicans don't do that. If they do anything, they stick together. They stick together. They will.
If Republicans, Bishop Barber, I'm sorry to cut you, but if Republicans had Jasmine Crockett, she would never get off TV.
Never.
If they had Jasmine Crockett, who's also from Texas, she would be on Fox every hour on the hour. They did it with Pam Bondi.
Exactly.
When they decided Pam Bondi was the right spokesman for them, I'm not sure I can think of anything Pam Bondi's ever said that's ever impressed me, but she was on TV every second. So by the time she became Attorney General, everybody that's a Republican knew who she was because they saw on Fox every minute. But with Jasmine, with Representative Crockett, they say, ooh, she might be too hot for us. We can't give her a gavel. Well, why not?
Why not?
I don't get it.
Yeah, well, that's my point. King said one time that the moderates were the worst enemy to the civil rights movement because they were more interested in order than they were interested in progress and pushing. And we see that the Republicans will stand with somebody, they'll allow them to make mistakes, they'll forgive them, and keep as long as they're sticking with the agenda. Instead, what Democrats would do is if you stumble, they'll walk away from you too often, and they get scared when you're strong. But this is the moment we need strength. We need the Crockers. We need Isaiah. We need persons who are willing to challenge what is going on in a forward. In other words, we need David. We don't need the other 6 sons of Jesse. We need David who says, I'm going to deal with Goliath, and I'm going to challenge Goliath. Right.
You've got Ayanna Pressley, Summer Lee. You've got all these incredible progressives that are just so good. I want to play you something else because this piece of video, I don't know if we have this video of the arrest. I played it the other day on the show, and it's one of the most impactful things that I've seen. I reposted it online. Do we have this video of the ICE arrest in New York?
Hold on, P, man. Sorry. Back. Out the way, fellas, out the way. Out the way.
It goes on, Bishop Barber. You know, that video impacted me so much. But it isn't just that. It goes on and on and on. At the end, there's an older Caribbean woman who says that could have been me. And she's weeping in the hallway because she says, that could be me.
Right. So
this seems to me to be such an easy layup for Democrats. They should, I mean, there are some, and I have to be honest, that are being really smart and really proactive and really fighting this and getting arrested for it. The senator in California, Padilla, Ras Baraka, who for whatever reason, Democrats decided should not be the nominee for governor in New Jersey, although he has stood up and put his body on the line to stop that. People who are speaking out against that quote unquote alligator Alcatraz, the concentration camp that Ron DeSantis has created in Florida. Lots of local elected officials, state elected officials, and Congress members stood up about that. So there are some people speaking. But to me, I feel like this is an outrage that's even made Trump's immigration policy less popular with Republicans.
Exactly.
Why is this not more, why is this not ending support for this man?
Well, first of all, because it's rooted in so much of this attitude by the MAGA group that they imagine this world that's behind us that they're trying to get back to. Secondly, because they look at immigrants and stopping immigrants through a prism of them voting and having power, but not voting for them. That's very real. They are very afraid of the shifting demographics in terms of voting. But in addition to that, look at that image again, Joy, and what it shows us. Masked men doing this, masked. Now we know that is the Klan, slave patrols. That image is saying something to a whole group of people that want this past to be present, right? And Trump is their messiah, their leader in this, and MAGA is the key to getting it done. And they think that if they stay there, then people will ignore the other issues. What we should be doing and is connecting what they're doing to the immigrants to everything else, the same people. And because it's so wrong, undemocratic, unconstitutional, the church, and I want to talk about and religious folk, this is the time we have to put on our religious garb. And that man or those people should not get arrested alone. That's the time when, and it shouldn't be just one person. Imagine if they did that and there were 100 clergy that said arrest us too, right? Every time. This is real. Or imagine if churches and mosques and synagogues said, come to our sanctuary, and it's going to be a sanctuary. And if they do this, we're going to force them to be filmed coming inside of the sanctuary in the church. This is the moment we're in. This is the moment in, and it's going to take that kind of courage, which is why, as I was saying to you, in a few weeks, we're releasing with Save America Movement these Liberty vans that will be, start in California, across the country, that are going to be directly challenging what ICE is doing in film. You cannot allow this to happen. And you know, Joy, if the shoe was on the other foot and you were doing this to MAGA folk, they would be standing up. The religious nationalists would be all in the street, right? They would be there. So this is not a moment that we can see this and say, it's just so bad. No, we have to engage. That's why, as I told you on August 18th, we're going to Mississippi to the senator's office, again, with caskets and impacted people, right in the heart of the South. And what's amazing, Joy, is the people calling us are white and black and brown, and we're putting a focus on it. And we're going to continue to do it. And I don't know if they're going to arrest us or not. But what I know is we have to arrest the attention of the nation, and we have to arrest in such a way that doesn't just say this is bad, but that we can do something about it. We literally have to start talking to people now about the power we have. I hope you and I on one of your shows can go back through those numbers to show people what could happen if we engage the folk that sat out of the last election. What really could happen? But this for some reason MAGA believes that by doing this they are saving themselves. And they are saving themselves from this coming black, brown, and progressive white coalition. And the truth of the matter, it is coming. And the truth of the matter is, when it comes, they won't have the demographics to do. And it is going to change the country. The question we have to ask is, when it comes, first of all, we don't need to wait for it to come. We need to push it into existence. But when it comes, will they have so ruined the government and ruined the power structures that, like Mandela, you end up getting a power structure that's broke, or broken, or defunded, and no resources.
And
But
broken. I mean,
broke
and
and
my
broken.
question too, right, is that, MAGA, to your point, they're protecting a guy who I'm sitting here going through these files and getting nauseated every day reading these Epstein old charging documents. They're willing to still protect this guy, the guy who is whose administration, whose regime, whose Department of Justice is still protecting the files of we don't know how many actual child predators and people who preyed on, and they say that this is something important to them, but they're still protecting Trump, who is protecting this list and who will not allow this list to come out. And at the same time, they're calling trans people perverts. They're saying that LGBTQ people shouldn't be able to teach in school. They're doing all of that, but they don't mind this, the guy who's stopping this truth from coming out, from doing what he's doing. And on top of that, I have to talk about this one other thing. That's on the well, I'll let you comment on that, because we do have this thing where they're saying the big moral crisis is that Trump won't release the Epstein files, but the same people saying that still support him.
Yeah. Well, Tim Tyson did a book on the woman who lied on Emmett Till. And in the course of that research, one of the things he found out is that wherever you find people who are deeply racist, you also find a lot of abuse of women and abuse of children, and sexual perversion. In other words, if you listen to them, the longer they talk, what they're doing a lot of times, criticizing other people, they're actually projecting what they're engaged in. You remember when all of these senators were against gay people, and all of a sudden it started coming out that they were, or when they were talking about Bill Clinton, and then the guy who owned one of the porn magazines said, "I'll give you $1 million if you tell on people," and it all what started coming out, But in the midst of this, as you said, who they will protect, and why are they willing to protect them? Because at the end of the day, for them, they're being fooled by the oligarchy, that somehow if you give to the oligarchy, they're going to be better, right? It's the same way that Dr. King said that when in the South, he said that when they had nothing else, they would feed poor whites the stale bread of racism. When they wouldn't put food in their hungry stomachs, they would feed them with racism. They would feed them with homophobia. They would feed them, and that same thing is happening today. And they are saying basically, I'm not worried about these files. What I really want is this old world. And the dream of an old world, the dream of some safe place behind us, the dream of that is a nightmare. And it will, and I said the other day, and I'm gonna start saying it more, Joy, racism and classism are forms of insanity. Literally, it's just insane. And when you buy into that stuff, it will make you do things that ultimately is going to hurt you too. I mean, you
Yeah.
take that bill, the so-called big beautiful bill, and there's two problems I have with that. One is that the people that supported the people that passed it, it's coming to you. It's going to kill you. It's going to close your rural hospital. Your family members are going to die. But when you're so blinded by the insanity of classism and racism and this old world that you want to get back to, you actually end up hurting your own self. With my
And
grandmother,
the thing that's so wild about that, Bishop Barber, is this obsession with the border. Now, Donald Trump claims he's shut the border down,
he's
so they shouldn't care about the border anymore.
right.
But they're still banging on about the border, the border, the border. People who've come in the country illegally, they need to do it the right way. And yet, the people who are doing it the right way at their immigration hearings are also getting nabbed by
Right.
masked men, which we just showed in that clip. But also, these people, the same people who are screaming about the border, want cheap tomatoes. They want cheap lettuce. They want cheap meats, but they don't understand that those same people they want to run out of the country are the ones who are picking the lettuce, picking the tomatoes, working in the meat packing factory. And then when those things don't happen and they're not cheap anymore, they're going to be screaming the loudest that they can't afford food. The same people who want to get rid of immigrants are the same people with farms, and they say, well, we hate USAID because that's just Marxism and communism. Turns out half of their income from their farm came from USAID that was buying their produce to send all over the world. MAGA is getting these MAGA, I call it hashtag MAGA consequences. They're getting these consequences. They don't like it, but they still can't get off the idea that there's something wrong with these non-white migrants. These immigrants gotta go. And literally, I've seen so many videos of people saying, well, I didn't think the prices were going to go up. I didn't think I was going to get tariffs. I just hate the border. I just hate that Biden let in 10 million people. And my pushback to them is, let's say Biden let in 20 million people. Those 20 million people are picking your food, taking care of your kids, cleaning up your house, mowing your lawn, opening businesses, and probably employing you. You're probably only working because those people came here. So you're saying, let's say it was 30 million people. Those 30 million people are putting money in Social Security so you can retire, and they don't even get Social Security.
Exactly.
They don't get Medicare, but they're paying for your Medicare. I just generally don't understand it, which is why I think you're right. It is.
And Joy, not only that you're having farmers now, the rate of suicide is going up because of foreclosures and they can't afford. And yet some of them, not all of them, are with this MAGA push. But I don't think, Joy, we've never really probed the depths. And this is a moral thing, a philosophical thing, of what damage it does to a society when you build your history on lies and you keep telling the same lies over and over again. So, for instance, you against people, immigrants, but you're an immigrant, right? Trump is not a Native American name, right? So you're an immigrant. His wife is an immigrant. You claim that you want this world and honor, say, the Civil War, but you don't want to remember that the people that owned the plantation sold out the poor white folk and made it so that their sons didn't have. Now I know this is a history lesson, but my point is, when you have sown lies, just so many lies, you claim to be the ones that built the country, and you don't want to acknowledge if it wasn't for the immigrants and the slaves, the country would not have been built. You claim that you pull yourself up by your own bootstrap, but then you don't want to own the history of all the free land that was given out and the Homestead Act. So what we have in this iteration of history is the lies on top of lies. There's a scripture in the Bible, Joy. It's a hard one. It says, a dog will always return to its vomit. And in a sense, what MAGA is doing is returning to vomit. It's returning to lies. It's returning. Eisenhower tried the same thing when he did Operation Wetback. after we had used Latino people and Mexican people to sustain the workforce, and particularly at the end of World War I, the Korean War, he decided that one of the things he was going to do was put 1 million people on barges and send them down to Mississippi and send them back as a political people. That's what he said. So this is us. It's not new. It is as American as American power. But there's another side of America too. And that is when people have joined together across lines and said no to this kind of evil and wrong. And this is the moment that we're in. This is our test. This is our test. If we can help people understand that if the same people that are attacking immigrants are also the same people attacking public education and attacking health care and attacking living wages and giving money to the wealthy and taking it from you, if they are mean enough to come together, we better be smart enough to come together and stand against them as a fusion movement and not in our individual silos.
Amen, Bishop Barber. And I've kept you over time too, but I'm going to just one more thing before I let you go. I have to get into this just for a moment because I want to come back to the Democrats just for one moment. And everybody, thank you all for staying with us a little bit over time. We really appreciate you hanging in. This is one of the beautiful things about independent media. We can go a little bit over our hour and we don't have to worry that there's another show coming on behind us on the backside. So there's a couple more minutes here, just a couple more minutes, because I have to put this picture up. This is from the New York Times. Because there is another issue that I think Democrats actually are quite shameful on, and that is the issue of Gaza. And I think you talked about the people who did not vote in the previous election. Some of them didn't vote because, as you said, they didn't hear an economic message that spoke to them, that said, I'm going to be able to survive if these people take over, if the Democrats stay in power. But there was a lot of real anger about what was happening in Gaza. And now what's happening in Gaza is even worse. This is what's happening not just to the people of Gaza who are literally starving to death right now, but the doctors. That last clip when you can see this woman weeping, it says here that doctors themselves, the doctors in Gaza, are famished to the point that they have dizzy spells as they make their rounds. Medics say, and journalists documenting their caseloads are often too weak to even walk into the clinics. The people, you can see these, and these are horrific pictures.
Yeah, they are.
The children are the ones who are starving first. They obviously need more nutrition. They need extra nutrition. These children can't breathe. Their immune systems are collapsing. These children are literally dying for no reason. And then when there is some food drop, people are desperately thrashing to try to get a little bit of rice, a little bit of food, and they're getting shot at by the IDF, who even a U.S. troop, a U.S. soldier admitted they're watching them shoot at these people as they're trying to get food. It is a clear, deliberate attempt by Bibi Netanyahu's administration to starve Gazans out of Gaza, to eliminate them, to ethnically cleanse them so they can take their land.
Yeah.
And so my question is for the Democratic Party, who will not support Mr. Mamdani, who's pledging to do what you're talking about. He wants to make New York affordable. He wants living wages. He wants affordable food. He wants affordable groceries. But they're hanging on to the fact that he supports Gaza, that he wants Gaza to be liberated, that he wants Gaza to have freedom. And so therefore he's not good enough, right? They'd rather have Cuomo than him. And Democrats simply don't, Biden couldn't do it. What is going on the Democratic side when they cannot embrace the idea of basic humanity when it comes to Palestinians who are Muslims and Christians?
Well, on our show, your show, we had Muslim, Christian, and Jewish clergy. Remember that? Challenging what was going on.
We did.
I was, and here's, you just said it at the last sentence. There is a place in politics where you have to decide if you're going to be a human being or merely a partisan, the polls individual. That's just basic morality. When you look at those pictures, there is no reason that you should not be criticizing and calling out this ethnic cleansing and this death and destruction and demanding that every bit of power, whether private or public or both, should be utilized to stop what is going on. But you got to decide. And that's a sole question that Democrats, they're going to have to decide, who are we? Not after we check the polls, but who are we as a party. Do we let 800 people die a day in this country from poverty and not address it? Do we allow what we see in Gaza and not address it because we check some phony poll or we're scared we're going to get some criticism from MAGA or Trump? At some point, you have to decide that I'm going to be a moral human being and I'm not going to find a way to excuse my morality away. But I would also argue, Joy, and I just heard something before I got on and it bothered me. I was listening to a group of preachers and they were talking about, for instance, some of the issues. And one of them said, we didn't know this was happening. Almost lost it. I want to just say, what you mean you didn't know? I wouldn't dare be a clergy today or a leader of church and admit, well, we didn't know the deal was this bad. We didn't really know what was going on in God. It is your job to know as a clergy person, as a moral leader. It is your job to read beyond the headlines. It is your job to be studious. It is your job to engage in public theology. It is not your job just to merely have a praise party and have people come in on Sunday and give it an offering. No, you literally are required to speak to the death of our time. And you can't claim ignorance. You just can't. And that is something that I raised in a sermon yesterday. What if every denomination, just say the Christian denomination, the progressive folk, every one of them and every bishop and every leader would put down the ego of their group and say, we're all going, say, to DC and engage in the most massive moral civil disobedience ever consistently because we're not taking this. And I had a student of mine yesterday say that they were in a conversation and they were with a preacher, and the preacher had preached a sermon about immigration in Gaza. And that person's bishop told them, you can say that, but I can't because I have to manage the denomination. Let me just say, and I'm a bishop too, any leader that feels like the way to hold your position in this moment is you have to manage the denomination. You are just as bad as those religious leaders that wrote Dr. King when he was in the Birmingham jail and would not stand up. You're just as bad as those who sat on the side while Pharaoh wreaked havoc. It is the time for us to own who we are supposed to be. And I dare say to the church, we all got our flaws, but in this moment, we will be held under incredible judgment if we have not stood up in this moment, whether it's Gaza, whether it's what's happening to immigrants, whether it's healthcare, and you will not be able to claim ignorance.
Amen. Bishop William Barber, Repairers of the Breach, Moral Mondays. My friend, I appreciate you so much. We are going to do this at the top of the month, every single month, because we want to try to get our moral house in order. We want to get our souls right so that we can be prepared for a full month battle against evil, because that is what we're battling. Bishop Barber, thank you. I always appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you. Take care. Bless.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. And you guys know that is going to be a once a month thing. We're going to do that at the top of every month. We're calling this the top of the month. We do understand this is the bottom of the month of July. It's going to be tough. This is a very difficult period that we're seeing in this country. But I think Bishop Barber made the point. I think that Isaiah made the point. I think Maya made the point. We have to think and fight differently. We cannot attack this problem in the traditional way. Traditional means are not good enough. They're not strong enough. And they're not going to work against Trump, who fights an asymmetric battle every day. He never fights according to the rules. He and MAGA, the only rules that they're fighting according to are Project 2025, because they're just opening Project 2025 and just acting out of that. They're just following those rules, but they don't follow the rules, the Constitution, the rule of law. If you had a problem right now and you needed federal intervention, who are you going to call? The FBI? That's Kash Patel. They work for Trump. You think the DOJ is going to help you if you have a problem and you want federal intervention? The DOJ works for Trump. There is no DOJ. for all intents and purposes. There is no NIH. You think there's going to be more vaccines coming out to save your kid from the next vaccine, from the next pandemic? That's not going to happen. It's now Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s weird ideology running our healthcare. There essentially is no federal government. I cannot say this strongly enough. Effectively, Donald Trump has turned the federal government off. There is no federal government to speak of, not to protect you, not to protect the things that you think are important, not to protect immigrants, not to add a rule of law that's in between you and deportation, technically maybe not to protect a citizen from being deported. We talked on the last show about citizens getting deported, sometimes sent to third-party countries they've never been to. And do you think the Supreme Court, John Roberts and them, Alito, Thomas, you think they're going to save you? They're not. Because all they're interested in is having the king of their choosing. And they've got him. And they're not going to do anything to protect you from him. So it's time for asymmetric warfare. And I say this all the time, you guys. It's one of my many sayings. When someone declares war on you, you are at war. And MAGA has declared war on you. They've declared war on multicultural America. They've declared war on non-white immigrants. They've declared war on the LGBTQ community. They've declared war on women. They've declared war on blacks for sure, but also brown folks, also AAPI. If you are not a white conservative Christian man, they've declared war on you. And they're going to keep making war until you stop them. And so I would call on the Democrats. If you are a Democrat in a blue state that's got what you call a trifecta, meaning you have the governorship, you have the state house, and the state senate, and you're not making a plan right now to gerrymander that state against Republicans, you're not doing it right because you're not fighting the war. You've decided that you're going to pretend you're not at war. Every single blue state, if you're not calling your lawyers in to find out if you can impound the money that you would normally send to Washington and say, if you're not going to spend our money on the poor, the sick, the elderly, the needy, if you're not going to do that, you're going to steal our money and spend it building concentration camps in Florida, you can't have our money. We're going to impound our money and keep it in California. The blue states pay all the bills anyway. Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, these states couldn't survive without California. They couldn't survive without blue state money. New York is paying their bills. Illinois is paying their bills. New Jersey is paying their bills. The only red state that pays its own way is Texas because they have oil. Maybe Alaska. I think Alaska, but they're a socialist state. They give everybody a check just for living there out of the oil money. So other than Texas and Alaska, every red state is a taker. They take the money from California, New Jersey, New York, Maryland, Illinois, and they spend it to destroy immigrants in their state, to allow ICE to raid their farms and to raid the schools and to show up at preschool graduation. If a blue state is going to just let them do that and not fight back in every way possible, and don't worry about it, let Trump sue you. Take action and let them go to the Supreme Court. By the time that winds its way to the court, you will have already implemented the change that we need. So that's it. That's my opinion. Please feel free to disagree. I see people in comments are talking about it, but my idea is fight fire with fire. I think Isaiah Martin agrees with me. I want to thank all of our guests, Isaiah Martin. If you are in Texas, please register to vote and make sure that you vote for him if you're in that district. Make sure that if you're in one of these gerrymandered districts that they're going to change and try to make it more Republican, that you tell a friend, tell a foe if you have to, get everyone you know to go out and make sure that they don't take those seats away. Because if they lock themselves in the United States Congress and they lock themselves in the Senate and that becomes semi-permanent, we're in the handmaid's tale, fam. They're going to be able to do the worst things possible. And the last thing I will add to that is one of the things that they could do, they've already said they're going to do. Person who runs the Department of Agriculture said on camera that the 37 million people who receive Medicaid are perfectly available to replace the deported brown people in the fields. Hear what you're hearing, see what you're seeing. I'm not making it up. It's on tape. Be sure to like and subscribe, share this channel. Make sure that everybody subscribes to the YouTube channel. 70% of people are lurking, watching these shows and not subscribing. Why would you do that? So make sure that you like, subscribe, and throw some comments in. Thank you all for joining the Joy Reid Show. See you on the next one, and goodbye for now.